I ordered it. I posted on Twitter my receipt. Hold on. I got well, there's only one version. So did they not have the blue color? Only black? Is that the only one we're getting for the Pixel 4a? So it cost me $349, and then after taxes I paid $370 for this phone. Hamed says the simplicity of the phone is just so appealing. Okay, you said that perfectly. That is exactly the point that I want to nail down in this video. The simplicity of the 4A. Do you remember on that pre-recorded stream I had Friday, I said, I didn't say the simplicity of it, but I said it's a minimalist's phone. I thought 4A says mono speaker. Not here. It says stereo speakers. I don't know. Did MKBHD get that wrong? You would think that if he got that wrong, that he would go correct that on Twitter or something. Look, Javier says MKBHD said one speaker, but corrected it in the comments that it is stereo. There you go. So MKBHD confirmed. We'll leave it at that. I wanted to put the following line after nearly every sentence. I should remind you that the Pixel 4a costs $349. So that is the driving point here. This is a phone with vanilla Android for $350 with an excellent camera. And I think it has just the right components in there without it being too much and without it compromising, I guess, also on too much. So this is something that I'm thinking about. And I was thinking about that as I was talking about the iPhone SE. The processor not standing the test of time. So this phone is going to get what? 3 years of updates, right? The Pixel 4a will get 3 years of updates. Is that 730 processor going to last 3 years? Is the battery going to last 3 years? That's also a good question. I think a lot of us probably aren't going to keep a phone for 3 years, but somebody who's going to be spending $350 who doesn't have a ton of money probably wants to keep their phone for as long as possible. They're probably not a tech enthusiast. They probably don't care much. They just want a phone that works, that has a good camera, and that will last them for as long as that $350 can ride them. Is the chipset good enough to last until, 2023, right? Summer of 2023, fall of 2023. Are there any of you in here that's doing that as well? Are you holding off for the Pixel 4a 5G? I can understand why. I don't know. So the way I feel about it, I was going to say this for later, but I might as well talk about it. I don't know if just adding a 765G chipset is enough to justify the $500 price point. It might be, but I don't know if it is for me. So iPhone SE second gen to the left. This is the iPhone SE right here. And then the Pixel 4a to the right with night sight enabled. Yeah, so obviously a huge difference, right? Huge difference. Less background noise, obviously brighter. But the iPhone SE isn't bad, but I would definitely take the Pixel 4a shot here over the iPhone SE easily. Slightly bummed there's no wide angle or telephoto lens, but only slightly. Usually those sensors are of worse quality than the main sensor. Dieter's kind of on point with my thinking here, especially at this price point, so dropping them isn't a huge loss. This is something that I do want to talk about as well, is the ultra-wide camera and the telephoto camera. I know these are two sensors that people want. This is something that people have complained about when the Pixel 4 came out and it didn't have an ultra wide shot. But I think there's also room for improvement for making sure that you release a good ultra wide and a good telephoto. Not that the Pixel's telephoto was bad, but I guess, I don't know. We'll see. You know, the Pixel 4 is still at a $350 price point, so I can understand that they would omit it. Google promises at least 3 years of software updates and says last year's Pixel 3a, which also has a lower tier processor, is aging well, but it's something to think about. And that's something that I ask consistently. Is it being laggy? Is it being weird? But almost everyone I've asked who owns a Pixel 3a tells me that it's still running great. Could there be some bias to that? Maybe a little bit. I mean, you own the phone, you spent the money on the phone. Maybe you see it, but you don't want to say it. I can't speak because I don't have one. But for most people seem really happy with it still. that it's still, chugging along and doing what it needs to do. The 4a has a 3140 milliamp hour battery, which is larger than the one on the smaller Pixel 4. Combine that larger battery with that more power efficient Snap 730G processor, and you end up with acceptable battery life. A little more than a week in, I'm averaging around 4.5 hours of screen time, which is about a day's worth of battery life for people who are like medium users, lasting through an entire day with no sweat. It's not a battery champ, but it's good enough for me. In writing about sub $500 phones, we usually end up talking a lot more about trade-offs. Once you dip down into those price points, you simply can't have it all. Phone manufacturers have to make choices about what needs to be good and what can be skimped. When I think about the Pixel 4a 5G, I think about the $500 price point, and I think about what else it has on that phone to make it worth that $500 price point. I'm not saying that it's not worth $500, because a 765 chipset is obviously better than the 730. It's still going to have that camera. I'm still going to get the same software. I'm still going to get the same, updates. But yeah, like others have pointed out, there's the longevity factor. How long is the 730 going to last? Will the 765 last 3 years? I guess it also depends on how long you're going to keep a phone for. If you know you're only going to be holding a phone for a year or 2 years, maybe then a 730 versus a 765G isn't the end of the world, because maybe in 2 years, that's really when you're going to care about 5G. That's when 5G is going to take off, or supposedly going to take off, or who knows when it's going to take off, if it even takes off. But if the Pixel 4a 5G at $100 more is also going to have a bigger display and a bigger battery, and maybe it's going to have the ultra wide, camera shooter or lens, or it's going to have the telephoto, maybe then it's going to be worth the extra $100. But if it's just the exact same phone and they're just putting a 765G in there and nothing else, then do you see what I'm saying? Then I don't really know if it's worth that extra $100. Team Vari is saying here, wish they included a telephoto and a wide angle though. And so this is what I want to talk about. I know a lot of people are talking about the wide angle and the telephoto. And I think for me, and I've said this before, I just don't want them to put a telephoto and a wide angle for the sake of putting one in there if it's just going to be mediocre. Maybe at this point, we just expect Google phones to have amazing cameras, although they don't have the best video in the world, which is something that Google needs to work on. So like here's the thing. I'll say this right now. I would rather Google correct their video and have video that works as smoothly, audio as good and clear as an iPhone, than adding an ultra wide for stills. That's me personally. I don't want to pull out my Pixel to take pictures or certain pictures, because then I have to pull my iPhone 11 Pro at night for night shots, or I have to pull my iPhone 11 Pro out for video, right? I want to have a phone that does photo and video properly. Does that make sense? I would rather have that than them go ahead and start adding all these extra lenses on it when they can't even get the video correct. I'm not saying the video is bad. It's not bad at all. The video is still decent for what it is, but I think Google can do better when it comes to video on the Pixel. Do you care about the color of your phone? So I do. I like having different colors. I said on my last stream or pre-recorded stream that I was going to get the blue one if the blue one came out. But for some reason, the black with the little touch of like that seafoam green on the power button, I think does it for me. I've said this already, but I do really like the minimalist approach at this 4A. I like the stock Android experience. I like the camera on it. The fact that it has a fingerprint reader that I can use to like swipe up and down for notifications. I still think that's one of the best features when it got released for Google for the Pixel lineup. The fingerprint reader, I think, is one of the best on there. Stereo speakers, 128 gigs of internal storage, and again, $350. Definitely looking forward to it. And if the battery is supposedly that great where I can get 4+ hours, if I can get 5+ hours of screen on time on that phone, I will be thoroughly impressed. And I would probably recommend that phone up and down all day. If all of that is that one neat package, but we'll see.